County Commissioners to order for Tuesday, September 15th. Let the record reflect that all three commissioners are present. And before we get into dealing with the business before us, I just want to point out to fellow commissioners that on the matter of budget amendments, that resolution, we do have an additional item that was added. I think you should have a copy of it. It has a new item C, which is for the sheriff, the amount of $60,000 to appropriate for tactical equipment and uniforms. This is as a result of our meeting yesterday with the sheriff's office and stuff. So I wanted to point out that that's been added to this so that we can dispense with that. And then we do have a by leave item that we discussed this morning and stuff. So you should all have a copy of that. So there is no hearing items for today. So the chair is open to a motion. Anybody?
Mr. Chair, move to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4, including all sub-items and today's by-leave item number 5.
I will second that.
Okay, you've got a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, all the sub-items appearing thereunder, including the addition of sheriff, $60,000 to appropriate for tactical equipment and uniform, as well as by-leave item number 5. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So that then gets us into discussion points for this afternoon. The first item is Gil on the mental health crisis stabilization facility.
Let me just jump in real quickly. What we did last week, got a lot of our team members together. Now that we're in the construction phase, got Gil and Bruce and others together. What we wanted to do, commissioners, is just show you a recommended priority. It's up for debate on we got the base bid assigned, but there's a lot of alternates that we also have. So what we thought we'd do is we got our budget office together with facilities and did a first cut at maybe some of your considerations at what we're actually going to be constructing here. So with that, Gil, I'll lead us off.
Again, thank you, John. Thanks, commissioners. And this is taking a look at once we approve the base bid award for Baker Construction, we really wanted to take a really good look at what our funding sources were and what our amounts were, and then what it looks like if we throw some of the option points in here for your consideration. Looking at the top of the screen there, the funding sources, taking a look at where we sit right now, and great work from Tessa helping out on this, and then also with Carrie. In taking a tally on this and what we have available, our funding sources total right now are just a little over $7 million. And what we did from there is that I wanted to actually put it into a couple more different options so we could really see what the actual funding shortfalls look like. As you noticed on option 1, which is the base bid construction only, we are already in a shortfall of about $316,000.
So Gil, does that $5.5 million, does that include Washington State sales tax?
Yes.
Yes.
It does include.
Yeah,
okay. I didn't see a line item, so I just wanted to make sure we caught it.
We went ahead and added in the tax on that, and,
okay.
And when you do look at the funding shortfall of the $316,000, if you go up a few lines there, you notice we did put the 10% contingency, and that was due to some of the mitigation work that we need to do up front with soils and stuff. We weren't quite sure how to add that contingency, so we went to the 10% level.
And that contingency also covers our tests and inspections and our commissioning.
Yep. So that's where we sit with our option 1 level. Option two, I looked at some of the items that I tried to, like you'll notice from the option one all the way to the option four, I tried to break it down as evenly as possible, dollars wise. But I did with option two, these were kind of the top priority alternates that I had looked at when I went through the alternates list that Mary had us break down earlier in the year. These were ones that I looked at, you know, for the overall operation on there. I prioritized them as the top priority alternates for the emergency generator, the build out of the Sally Port and rooms, the cleaning and restoration of the exterior, the concrete. We're showing some pretty good signs of degradation there. Upgraded doors to the impact resistant doors, and then the fiber reinforced laminate at the toilet and shower locations. We felt that those would be the ones that we know that in that 10-year time span, I think that some of these would definitely show the worst for wear at that time. So that was our option one, but that brings us to a shortfall of about 822,000. And then we go to option three, which is the base bid plus top and mid-level priority alternates. And basically what this one is this is option two of the top priorities, but then we added the mid priorities alternates would be the build out of the west end of the facility and the courtyard and fence. They kind of go hand in hand with the project. So looking at that, with that add-on for those alternates, that brings us up to a shortfall of just a little over 1.8 million. And then of course the option four is the base bid plus all the alternates. And that puts us at the final shortfall, which is about 2,168,000 roughly. These are all, again, every one of these option bids contain their 10% contingency. Hopefully we go in with our fingers crossed and we don't spend it all right off the get-go. But those are kind of the numbers that I see them as priorities, that if we broke them down into those levels, those are what the shortfalls will look like. Anybody want to add anything?
Any questions? Oh, did you?
No, I said it looks good to me.
Okay. Mary, Josh, comments, questions, concerns? Input? Crickets? Okay. So you're looking for direction, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking for directions on the alternate sides where we still don't have the base bid contract lined up yet with Baker. We haven't gotten back all their.
We're in the process.
We're in the process right now. So this is really just getting these out on the table for the board to take a look at and really kind of see direction wise, just kind of getting your inputs and some direction.
So when do you need a decision by? Do you need one now? Do you need one within a week, 2 weeks? Before the end of the
Pretty
year?
soon,
Yeah.
because these are all going to have to be done as change orders at this point.
Right.
And we can't do anything with them until we have the original contract signed. So we've got at least a week for that.
Okay.
The difference though is I'd like to get them started on it so that, I mean, we have a really tight time frame for construction on this, and I don't want to delay that.
Okay. So I'm getting a sense that we probably don't need to make a decision on this today, but what would be the desire of the board in terms of revisiting this to be able to make a decision as to which options we do want to take, if any? Want to bring it back on Monday? Later? Earlier?
I'm fine with bringing it back on Monday. I think it's something, if we can have Gary kind of lay out some scenarios or options as far as closing the gap on those shortfalls, kind of what different revenue streams are available to close that. And then, I would say have a discussion and see what avenue pencils out, makes the most sense for us.
And so what I'm seeing, oh, go ahead, Mary, I'm sorry.
Glenn, I think we need to look at what our other partners are looking at, because and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the city talked about, wanting to participate in those costs, as, if we look at what that would look like.
Mhm.
So I think we need to know how the other entities that will be using this, what they would like to participate in or not.
So Arian, as I remember, I think you were the lead on reaching out to the other partners in this. Have you had an opportunity to do that, and what kind of response are you getting?
So actually, as far as the municipality and the local agreement, that is John Dixon who is leading that. The last time I briefed the board, the mayor and Wes are definitely open to collaborating with you on these options for what they feel they can do to close the gap. So at the board's discretion, we can send some of these alternate scenarios to them if you feel comfortable. But as far as the other entities, I'll probably defer to John as he's been the touch point to the other entities.
So just to answer your question so far, and Arian, appreciate you and Dan, Kirsten, your participation. We've talked to Cheney, we've talked to Cheney and Liberty Lake. No, Spokane Valley and Liberty Lake, sorry. And Jim, you've been part of these discussions also. And we also have had really robust discussions with Providence and Multicare. And one of the things that we're hearing back is what we're here calling, from a construction standpoint, these mid options. Well, we've called it diversion in the past. It's $850,000, building out that west side. It seems to be a pretty high priority for a lot of us. And maybe Dan, just to help our board understand, there's also an M&O repayback of Medicare money if we do go that route. Could you maybe just bring us up to speed again on what might be advantageous to build out that west end? And unmute yourself. Not yet. Dan, you're still muted.
Frozen.
Does Jared need to unmute? I don't know.
No, when Dan first started talking there, the mute button wasn't there. I think something's wrong with his microphone.
Okay.
Because the microphone with the red X was not there when he first started talking.
I know he sometimes has issues getting onto our calls, so he may be trying to dial in. I don't know. Oh, Dan.
Hey, Dan. Nope.
No, I seem to.
Oh,
There you
There
go.
you are.
Everything froze up for me. It must be my internet connection. I apologize for that. Well, I think so. To John, what you were just asking. So I think the advantages to building out the rest of the building there is that we'll gain those additional 16 holdover beds, which really ends up filling that need of the once people have stayed 3 to 5 days, that gap time, which is where they would end up potentially. You know, it gives us more time to help with establishing either long-term treatment or housing for them. And that 3 to 5 day gap, really between us and really all those that we've talked with, I think that's the part that's is much more challenging if we just have the 3 to 5 days. Whereas when we have that additional time, we're able to get people the either needed service or housing along the way after. So I think everyone kind of recognizes that value. In terms of cost and Medicaid reimbursement, what it ends up being is that we get those additional 16 beds, but without any additional delta in cost for operations, because those additional beds are covered at a 95% rate by Medicaid. So we're really not adding any additional operational delta to be covered by adding, while still getting that substantially more capacity and those 30 days or so, if needed, out of those other beds. So, I mean, it's pretty big benefit of having it at really no additional operational costs. However, of course, recognizing there is an additional capital cost, so I don't want to downplay that at all, but there is quite a bit of value, I think, on the build out end.
Dan and Arian, I think you'd agree, as we have had our talks with Providence, Multicare, and some of the municipalities, this seemed to be a pretty attractive component of the mental health crisis stabilization facility.
Yeah, I think because for very much the reason I was alluding to there is that they see a lot of the short-term crisis type services, as valuable as they are, but it can still end up being kind of a cycling back in and out of homelessness, or back re-engaging with first responders because they got through the initial crisis, but there hasn't been enough time to really get the next piece of things set up. Now, in general, we would work hard on that either way and try to set up whatever options we can for people. But this just really, I think from all the other providers as well, they looked at that part and went, that's really attractive because you don't got to move people around place to place. You've got that extra amount of time and you can do it all right there in the facility. And you don't have that churn of in and out as much.
Thanks, Dan.
So looking to have you refresh my memory here a little bit. When we started down this road, I thought one of the initial assumptions was that this facility would help reduce some of the cost in the jail, both from the standpoint of, being able to acquire Medicaid dollars, to be able to help folks, and also taking that service out of the jail and putting it more appropriately into a treatment facility. So if that memory is correct, then also associated with that reduction in activity in the jail, should there also not be a reduction in cost in the jail to provide those services that are no longer going to be provided there?
So I can weigh in on that a little bit. And Commissioner, yes, your assumption is correct. That is still very much one of the high priority outcomes for this effort. One thing that we're needing to differentiate is we are trying to reduce the impact on jail booking and the manual metrics that the jail staff performed from February through the end of June indicated that there were a significant number of individuals that came through booking that if this facility was open would never set foot there. And that as a one element that would help the jail staff would just be to reduce the magnitude and also really the red light status of the booking area. Secondarily, those that would then go on to classification after booking, those folks would no longer receive the high level of mental health while in a inmate status. So our first impact point was to reduce the order of magnitude of folks in booking that were in mental health crisis and eligible from a statute standpoint. And then secondarily, the average daily population. The average daily population were point in time counts that hovered right around 150 individuals in the jail at any point in time. The jail booking metrics were, and I'd have to pull them up. I want to say easily, I'll have to pull them up, but there was a significant chunk of the bookings that could have been eligible. And that's all bookings, bookings into classification and booking that results in booking and release because they're still very time intensive.
So has there been an effort to try and monetize those efficiencies? And if so, what does that dollar amount look like? And can that help offset some of this shortfall that we're seeing in the construction budget?
So I will definitely defer to Bryce and Gary. We have definitely the impact, but from what I understood when we did this before Tanya left, the monetization on the jail model won't be realized until you actually start closing facilities. That this is just the throughput, that you're actually able to safely manage more people. But we really, because they're managed by separate contracts and separate staffing models, we really couldn't monetize the savings by either the county or the municipalities until the mental health facility is diverting enough of the jail population away that we're able to address either site or significant staffing readjustments, because they're on completely separate cost models. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And Arian, to your point, the studies we did showed about, was it 15, I think 15 to 18% of our bookings at any point in time could have been eligible for this facility. When we had 1,000 people on average in our jail, Arian, correct me if it was around 150, 175 people-ish that we saw would be eligible for this. And also to Arian's point, and Commissioner French, we have been looking at that. And we would have to close out a floor on the jail or close out portions of Geiger, which would directly then affect staffing to gain some of these efficiencies that we can see in our mental health facility.
Okay.
And Commissioner French?
Yes.
So, and partly it's, this is all misdemeanors, so it really affects, as we looked at the metrics of the different people that would be eligible, it affects the city of Spokane, the city of Spokane Valley, I think more than Spokane County, because again, we're looking at where the arrests occurred. And so that's why on the capital side, part of the discussion is it's, looking at those other jurisdictions proportionately to help with the capital they're willing to.
Okay.
So revisiting the metrics, it's about 40% of all jail bookings could have been eligible for diversion. And then as John said, just about 10 to 12% of the population inmate status could have been eligible. So those are two different metrics for you guys to ponder.
I think I wanted to, if it's possible, just throw in one other metric we learned along the way with one of the mentor sites with, was around number of hours that law enforcement spend on mental health calls. And that they measured, before their crisis facility opened up and then after their crisis facility opened up, and saw about a 2/3 reduction in the amount of time that a law enforcement officer has to spend on a mental health related call once they open a crisis facility like this in one of our mentor sites.
Yeah, so just so that I don't leave the wrong impression, I'm not challenging the efficacy of the project. What I was trying to do is see if I can mine dollars somewhere in the system with efficiencies that can help offset some of the shortfall that we have here. So that's my only intent.
And Commissioner,
go ahead.
Commissioner, that's actually what we're finding is maybe fertile soil between our partners at Multicare and Providence. Our discussion with Providence last week that included Sarah Clement Sampson, who's the health investment manager, they were actually looking for, and we asked specifically, either M&O or capital gaps. So our partners are looking to see where the gap is for investment. And so I think we haven't been to that point yet where we were able to nail it down. So that's outside, obviously, our budgets and general ledger, but that might be the way to, and in their words, what could you do if you had our money that you couldn't do if you didn't have it? So I felt like that was a very nice question to be posed to us.
Okay. Any other comments?
We'll bring it back on Monday.
Okay.
And continue this discussion. And please look over the priorities board. We made a first attempt at this and let us know. We'll continue the discussion on Monday.
Very good.
Oh, Gary's got an input.
Would you like me to work with Arian and the city then on when we're putting together the complete gaps to cover for costs on each of these scenarios to understand what the city's willing to commit to?
And
Okay. Yes.
one quick question. Would you like additional information on, as Dan started to allude to, about the operational costs and the impacts to that? Would that be useful information, or should we
Yes.
stick with capital? Okay, we'll do that too. Oh.
Yes, yeah. I just want to make sure our board sees this information from both a capital and operation. So we just make a really good decision on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything else for this topic? Very good. Thank you, everybody. So next item is Mr. John Peterson. And we're going to talk about two items. One, building and planning briefing, and then we're also going to have a conversation with regard to potential swap as it relates to the ORV park in Airway Heights. So why don't we start out with building and planning? I think, I know that you and I talked, and I think you've had a conversation with Josh and maybe Mary about the complaints that we're getting from home builders that are concerned about the amount of time that it's taking to get permitted on new homes and stuff. And could you just give us a little bit of background about kind of where you're at and what's in the mix?
Thanks, board members. John Peterson. I know you guys have had a few calls, few concerns expressed by some frequent flyers who may be one-time users of the permit system. James Moore and I, the building official, met recently with the home builders, and at that meeting was their government affairs rep, and also I believe a gentleman from Hayden Homes, one of the larger builders. And we basically told them that, hey, yeah, we got a lot of work going on. We got a lot of permit activity. I have people working overtime. We just hired a new permit coordinator to replace the one that was retired and had been on furlough voluntarily because of COVID. We're working as fast as we can. James and I also took it upon ourselves to go back to the large volume of sheds, old buildings, et cetera, that were stacking up and being submitted. Those are all now been entered. We're right up until, a week to 10 days on any of those that have been already processed. Everything that we have has been processed, is in the mill. What we're finding is a lot of people aren't using the correct portal for submittal of permits. They're coming through building and planning help, which doesn't help us any because it's the whole permit system is set up to be used through SmartGov. But I can say that we are cranking as hard as we can on each of those. If there are specific instances where someone has an issue, we try to resolve and expedite those as needed, case by case basis. And we've also had some of the folks like Hayden Homes say, hey, look, I've got a block of 40 permits in this subdivision. I want to use the master permit for all, call it MUPs, one permit set of already approved plans. And so they've helped us prioritize those that are more important than the ones that they'd submitted just to get in to beat the new energy code that Al's probably talked to you about too. And so those, we will have another wave of that in February when the new energy code hits. So that will be kind of wave two, I think, of those that we had submitted in, late spring, early June-ish to beat the code that was now continued to February. So I think we got a pretty good handle on it, but if there's individual things that you see, let me know and we'll expedite them as we have to on a case-by-case basis. I've got the permit text coming in early, staying late. Again, we just have a lot of throughput to get through the system and get them in, entered, and then circulated through review.
There's two dynamics that are going on. One, as Tom Konis has indicated, we've got close to $1.2 billion new construction on the books. So it's not as though that we've been lacking. The one thing that did hurt us, though, is that the governor delaying construction starts and stuff did kind of pile up on us a little bit. And so that and COVID has been a challenge for the office. The other thing that John's referring to with regard to permitting is that the new building code, especially the electrical code, was supposed to take effect on July 1. And we were in the middle of COVID and stuff. And so the State Building Code Council that it served on made a request to the governor to extend the timeline for activating or enforcing the building code until November 1, with the hope that we would be through this. Well, since the builders had a late start and they've been going like crazy, they've not been able to have the courses and the education necessary to understand the implications of the new code, or be able to implement or to include the pricing associated with the new building code. So about a month and a half ago, a group of us on the Building Code Council pushed through on a very tight, in fact, I think it passed by only one vote, to extend the timeline on activating the new building code until, I think it's January 31, to get us through the building code, the construction cycle, to give the trades time to educate themselves so that they could start implementing the new code for the next construction cycle. So that also has created some interesting dynamics, but you know, it seems to be working out now.
The other scenario is pre-COVID, people could walk in the door probably with a steel building permit, shop, pole building, and get it that day across the counter. That can't happen now because they're not open to the public. So that is a concern of many of them. They were so accustomed to just walking in the door, here's my standard plans for a steel building, and you know, by the time we've been talking, they'd be done. That just doesn't happen now, so they just get, you know, 30, 40 of them coming in a week, and there they are. We got to enter them in the system, review the plans, and get them out. So that is a big part of some of the concerns I've heard, is the shop and pole building stuff is just not over the counter anymore. And that's just a factor of where we are in with the COVID and not being able to have the doors open. That's all I have, unless you got any questions.
So if somebody were to submit a plan today for a typical 3,000 square foot home, what kind of timetable are you looking at?
I'd probably say 10 days.
About 10-day turnaround time? Okay.
And from what I got from our folks at the home builders, even though they're a little spoiled, they still said that we're far better than our peer jurisdictions, and don't even get them started on labor and industries. About electrical inspections are so far out, they have a very, very difficult time managing.
So a lot of our drawings, before you can issue a permit, have to go to other agencies.
That's true. So it's not just us. We may have other purveyors. We got a fire department. We got water districts. We have the city on occasion for a different kind of permit. So it's not just us. There are many facets of the permit process that require sign off. Could be stormwater, could be public works. So even though we get that process and what we may be done internally from building and planning and plan review, there's still other agencies that we still have to get feedback from. And I know that could take a large amount of time because they're not in the office, they're working from home. Or from the scenario we talked about, one with a commercial project with the city, the Douglas thing, it took the city probably over a month? Over a month to get back with pretty straightforward plans on an industrial park. So it's just a weird time. And we are cracking it as good as we can.
John, when someone submits plans online, and I've heard there's a delay between when they're submitted to when they show up sort of in the queue visible
correct.
online. What happens between the submittal and it showing up on the queue? What all has to be present or be, to create that completed application to show up in the queue?
You've hit the nail on the head, Josh, on two things. One is they submit them, and they may be coming through SmartGov, or they may be coming through Building and BP Help. When they submit them, they may not be totally complete. So even though the applicant says, hey, I submitted this to the county on August 25th, we may have a few pieces of paper, but it may not constitute an actual complete application. Signed documents, the plans may not be attached. They need to sign it. They haven't got a site plan. So until we may have a stack of, say, 30 submittals that week, they have to be gone through to say, one, is this complete enough to enter it into the flow, the throughput for the system? And if not, like that's what James and I have been focusing on, those ones that have come in and haven't been entered. So just because they email it to us doesn't mean it's been entered into the system yet. It's got to be manually entered into the SmartGov system And then at that point, then we give them that feedback to say, hey, we got your submittal, but please note, your site plan needs corrections, or, hey, we didn't get your proper plans. You have to pay your fee. So all those things add up to that time frame between what the applicant believes I submitted it until it's in the system. So those are the ones we took on to say, hey, we had a backlog of these permits sitting there that hadn't been entered yet. James and I expedited those, so that pile no longer exists. At least now they're all in process. So the applicant can then check to see what do I need, or to get the feedback from us to say, hey, we've expedited this shop building, but I got a site plan that shows a spec like this and a drawing like that, setbacks, well, myriad of other things that can be incomplete.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of education to the users, and we tried to explain that when we went with the home builders to say, hey, if we get a complete application, it's going to go a lot faster. That's when the across the counter ones were easy, because you could have the guy sitting there right across the counter from you and say, oh gosh, I need another this or that. Now that is an email transaction back and forth, and creates another work loop beyond I can talk to Al and say, Al, where's your architectural details? Oh, forgot, they're here. I got them in my briefcase. That's the stuff we can't do anymore. So it just takes a bit more time to have that dialogue back and forth over email, where before it could be right there.
Okay. And payment is also
exactly.
part
Yes,
of
payment.
a completed?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Hey, I submitted it. Well, did you pay the fee? No. Well, guess what? It's not complete. And so that just makes another cycle of, thank you for your stuff. However, we still need this and that, so we can continue our review.
Okay.
So, John, when did you meet with the home builders?
Gosh, I'd say a week, 10 days ago.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Hayden Homes guy, that's who it was. Yeah, Hayden Homes.
Okay. Any other questions for John on that?
Well, just to confirm, you said if a completed application today, you said about 10 days?
Yeah, I think we got a pretty straightforward, simple one with a good set of plans. We can get it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
If it's not a 200,000 square foot warehouse we have never seen before or something. I'm talking residential.
Yeah. Okay.
With in-house reviews, with no other agencies. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for John on this one? So give us a little bit of a description of what is being proposed by Airway Heights and Jack Castell on his project.
I've got some maps here. Hopefully I can have Gina scan and send them to you after we're done. What we have is a situation where Jack Castell has hooked up with another property owner in the vicinity of Airway Heights to look at a potential UGA net zero swap between Airway Heights' existing urban growth area boundary. Right now, Airway Heights has a UGA that is located to the northwest of the present city limits. And it's an identified joint planning area with this county. We don't have any joint planning agreement with them, but it's like all the other small towns. They have a UGA assigned to them for future growth. Right now, that boundary is on the northwest corner of the city of Airway Heights. It also happens to include the county's ORV park, off-road vehicle park, not the raceway park, but the ORV park. The county has 3 parcels there, totaling about 180 acres. Mr. Castell and Mr. Ewing, Oswald and Ewing, have property, which I have a map, which is just to the east of the city limits, between the city limits and Flint Road, where they would like to do a UGA swap to take the 180 acres that the county owns that is currently occupied by the ORV park and move it to the properties just east of the city of Airway Heights, so that the ORV park would be removed from the UGA. UGA swap would go through then the County Planning Commission and the steering committee of elected officials, because it impacts the UGA, and then to the board for your review and consideration. Kind of similar to what we're doing with the CV land swap, parcel A to parcel B. After this would be accomplished, then it would provide the opportunity for Airway Heights to annex the property. And then at that time, during the annexation process, Airway Heights could then determine the appropriate zoning in density for that property. The UGAs assigned to the small towns when the comp plan were adopted did not have urban densities. They just had a denotation on the map that says this is a future UGA. It retained a rural zoning designation until such time the cities were interested in annexing it, that planning for it, and then assigning the appropriate land use category and zoning. In this case, this idea has been kind of kicked around between Airway Heights, the county, Commissioner French, Airway Heights staff, and it looks at this point that the city of Airway Heights is in favor of this application. Would be basically directed by the county per se, because and Airway Heights, because we own the property. County Parks owns the property. I spoke with Doug Chase late last week. Doug has no objections to the proposal because, quite frankly, the ORV park doesn't need to be in the UGA to exist or occur. The only caveat that Doug expressed to me was that if the park becomes out of the UGA, the city then has the opportunity to charge more for water. They do use some potable water there that they use for drinking water, but the other part of it comes for irrigation and spraying dust. But that was Doug's primary concern. So that is it in a nutshell. The only other kind of twist of this is that the property, again, sits north of the city of Spokane's UGA along Highway 2, east of Airway Heights, and the city of Spokane is a purveyor of water and sewer services. So they would have to be on board with this through the review process. But so far, we haven't heard anything to that context of negative or lack of available capacity for city water, city sewer to serve this property. So the reason we want to bring this forward is we've had initial discussions, but as the county, as the property owner, it'd be great to have the direction or the consensus of the board through clerk's minutes to initiate this amendment as a UGA swap so we can begin the review process and start this through the path of the planning commission and steering committee, et cetera.
So the net effect is that it'll add about 180 acres of developable land to the UGA that can accommodate housing. And how many units has he proposed up there?
Well, I think at one point he showed me a conceptual plan of a couple hundred units at least. And again, this would probably have to be phased over time because the property owner that Jack represents, the Oswalds and Ewings, have much more than 180 acres of property. But again, this could be something that could be done in phases over time. At least the initial chunk could be the 180 for the swap. I think later as Airway Heights reaches their allocation, then they would have enough ammunition to come back and say, hey, we used up our allocation that was given to us and we need additional growth area. This would be a perfect candidate for it.
Yeah, even at a 5 units per acre, you're looking at a little over 900, almost 1,000 residential units in the West Plains that aren't there now. And there's limited place. Well, there is no place where something like that can happen on the West Plains. So,
from a utility standpoint, you've got city water and sewer lines just essentially call it the south property line, serving the city and also what do you call it? Pillar Rock. You know where Pillar Rock is. This property is just to the west of the Pillar Rock area. Plat that's vested outside the UGA. So essentially, we take Pillar Rock, if you will, between the city and Pillar Rock and just go northward on a pretty wide swath of larger parcels.
So any questions, any concerns, anything that you'd like to get more information on, or are we okay letting John move forward? Josh, you okay?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, Mary?
Yeah, I don't have any additional questions right now. I'll be anxious to see the map and see where everything is.
Yeah, I've got a couple of maps I've outlined, and I've put the. I can pull them up.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you go ahead and put them up on the screen?
Take a second.
This is showing properties that would go to. Tina's going to send a couple maps, I think, as we speak, or if you can bring them up. Can everybody see that map?
Yep.
That map shows, if you look to the area highlighted in yellow, where it says Airway Heights JPA, the county owns 3 parcels that encompass basically the east half of that JPA. And that's where that area has also the shaded area is the ORV park. So that would be the area to which that map would be changed. And that easterly portion would move to the map to this left or the right side of the map. You see where it says Pillar Rock? That would be the area between west of Pillar Rock and the east boundary of Airway Heights, going north along Flint, where the Oswald Ewing properties would be. So it would form a consistent boundary with Airway Heights. So it's not an island. It doesn't have any conflicts. You do see a little bit of airport overlay zone, though. Those overlay zones don't preclude residential development at the densities that we'd be looking at. And it takes it away really where Airway Heights wants to go. In short, they're not really interested in going out there to the northwest. That's the discussion I've had with their planning director, Heather Troutman. I think I also had the same with Albert and others. Right. This is really what they want, and they really kind of need us to be the initiator because we are the property owner. And can you bring up this one?
That one, it'll be up in a second.
Yeah, so this is going to be
that map that you see right now, the 3 highlighted parcels in yellow, those are the county ownership where the ORV park exists.
So I mean, if you with 900 new residential units, that's probably at least almost 2,200, 2,300 residents that would be basically right there next to that retail core that you got with not only the Walmart but the new North 40 and all of that kind of stuff. So all of that's adding more customer base, if not the West Plains area. The biggest thing is it's also supporting all the jobs that are coming to the West Plains. And quite frankly, right now we don't have adequate housing to accommodate. And what happens is when that housing's not there, all of those workers that work on the West Plains go onto I-90, and WashDOT is trying to get more people off of I-90 than putting them on. So when you talk to Gribner, he'll tell you, whatever you can do to keep people off of I-90 is going to help the system, especially because of traffic that goes through the center of the city of Spokane, because the viaduct is getting maxed out. And there's no way to rebuild that. We're not going to bury it. So what we got to do is manage it. So that's the other thing, that from WashDOT's standpoint, they're very supportive of anything we can do to get housing up on the West Plains, because it takes traffic off of I-90 and the congestion on that.
So last map you see up right now, these are parcels to which the swap would be the receiving parcels. The ones highlighted in yellow are owned by the Castell group. And you can see that it abuts Airway Heights right there to the west, that line. And it would show you the larger ownerships that would maybe potentially in the future be added. Basically those, you're looking at some parcels there that are a couple of 40 acres, 39 acres, a very large one, 9001, kind of at the top of the map, that's 79 acres. And there's another 100 acres north of that that would be for potential and future growth. So again, it kind of puts this in a kind of a package where over time you might see that kind of blending of Airway Heights growing in to the north of their current boundary. And this would give Airway Heights the opportunity to plan for their capital facilities and all that infrastructure needs in the city without us having to do a capital facilities plan.
Right.
Because it's not our services, it's city services. And they can really defer that until such time as they go through the annexation process. The swap will just initiate the first phase to get this UGA amended, and then it's going to fall on Airway Heights to follow up and work with the city of Spokane, annex it, and we really have nothing to say with the annexation process. If it's in a UGA, it can be annexed. If it's not in the UGA, nobody can annex it, city or county.
Where's the UGA boundary right now on that map?
It's basically the map. It's adjacent to the UGA in the south. We see where it says City of Spokane. That kind of little heavier line south of parcel number 9015. 9015 is the southerly parcel. To the south of that's UGA, City of Spokane. To the west of that is City of Airway Heights, UGA. Ron, can you move your cursor over that maybe? Right, yeah, right there. To the west of that is City of Airway Heights. That's inside the city, of course, that's a UGA. South is the City of Spokane boundary. Oh, look at you. Very nice. And so, yeah, there, that's where the UGA is. That makes sense?
Yeah, the other thing it'll do for us is as we venture into the whole realm of doing swaps to try and adjust the UGA, you know, at this point, we've got 2 pending for Commissioner District 2. This would be the one for Commissioner District 3, and we still need to find one for Josh's district so that we can get balanced approach. But absent that, at least we've got some balance to this as we move forward.
So the purpose of coming today was to get your direction, hopefully, as clerk's minutes, as the property owners, to move forward with directing us to initiate this and then getting the process moving forward. Like I said, I've already talked with Doug Chase. He has no issues with this. You know, nothing major that I've heard so far. If it does, it'll come out in the hearing process. But so far, everybody seems to be thumbs up. Let's make this happen. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. Okay. Any other concerns, questions, information you need?
Not at this point in time.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you much. Appreciate it. I'll Judy, give some clerk's minutes.
Chad Coles.
Thank you.
Let me call Chad real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, John, did you need action for us to direct you to continue on this?
I just think clerk's minutes would be enough to say we had
Okay.
the briefing,
Okay,
he's directing
so we
staff
want
to
motion.
initiate.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you, Joshua.
And Gina's going to send us a copy of those maps.
Yeah, I've got hard copies here and she's got them scanned. I think we can send them to you. So,
Okay.
plenty of them. Get out of here.
Can you give Commissioner Cooney a map and show the boundary as it currently exists and what the boundary would be with the swap?
Oh, sure.
So that
Yeah.
it's real clear, because
Yeah.
you know, I'm familiar with it because I've been working with it so long, but it's
Yeah.
not all that crystal clear on those maps. So if
Yeah.
you could produce something, even
Sure.
just a magic marker to kind of.
Yeah, I could do that. I could take one of these and I'll kind of have to estimate what it would look like of 180 acres. I don't know what configuration they want, but I can calculate it out because these are pretty
Yeah.
big parcels.
Yeah, why don't you send it to both Josh and Mary?
Will do. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
You bet.
Chad's calling in.
Ron,
So the next presentation's Chad Coles. He's coming forward with some more traffic revisions for us, for our consideration next week. And so you should have a handout that kind of sort of looks like this, or it looks like that. And so, Chad, you're on.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to touch base with you folks prior to this coming forward with the for the hearing. So the first one is a traffic code revision on Chatteray Road. Can we get the next? Oh, can I change this? No, I can't. Okay, so this is up north, and this is a traffic revision to 35 miles per hour. Odd part about this is a cleanup. Several of these are cleanups to our existing code. Currently, this road is signed at 35, so we're just matching our code to the signs that have been out on the road for quite some time. So that's one of them. Stop me at any time if you have any questions. This is just another view of it. This is Chatteray Road between Newport Highway and 395. up in that area. If you've ever been over, the reason it's 35 is because it's vertically and horizontally challenged. It's got quite a few curves on it, and it should be a 35-mile-an-hour road. Next slide, please. So the next one is North Road in the same area, same reason. So this is North Road is the old 395 back when the state highway wasn't where it is right now, and it's a narrow 2-lane concrete roadway. Again, it is posted at 25 miles an hour. Next slide, please. Here it is up close and personal. Next slide, please. Again, this is a different traffic code revision. This is a no trucks restriction on these roads. This is up just on the east side of NSC, north of Francis. And again, these have been posted as no trucks since NSC was built, and we're just cleaning up the code. I think it's fairly obvious these roads don't go anywhere really, and it's a mixed use residential, commercial, industrial area right there, particularly on Julia Street. But there's local trucks are certainly welcome in a posted no trucks area. Next slide, please. Again, up close and personal. This is an interesting area. This is up in the 9 Mile area, and this is essentially the same thing, a cleanup of the traffic code. We've confused a whole bunch of folks with our presentation on this, so I'm going to clean this up in the future. The only change to what's posted out there is that little blue area. Can you get to the next slide? I think it's more clearer down there. That's right off of the 9 Mile road, and it leads to the area down by the little Spokane River. That blue area is a change from an existing 45-mile-an-hour posted speed to 35, and it goes right adjacent to a school, and we have a new portion of the Centennial Trail that we're going to open up to, so we're reducing the speed right in that area. The rest of this has always been posted 45 in the black part and 25 in the yellow, or red part. So we're just cleaning up the code on that portion. Next slide, please. And again, stop me if you guys have any questions with any of this stuff. Next slide. Same thing, different route. Okay, this is limited access for Gibbs Road. This is something the board's seen in the past. We're bringing it back up. We got stopped by COVID last year. So this is a section of roads in South County, just essentially between Palouse Highway and Dishman Micah. Sands Road bounds it on the west, and Madison Road bounds it on the east. This is the section that we're talking about doing limited access on is Summer Road only, and it's essentially solves some of the challenges that the neighbors have been complaining about out there with folks doing dirt bike activities, mud bogging out in that area. Next slide, please. There's a close-up view of it. So that temporary closure would be gated on each end, and the adjacent property owners would have access keys to the gate so they can get through on an as-needed basis. Of course, the county would have those keys also. And just a reminder for the board, limited access can be revoked at any time by the board. Next slide, please. One of the questions that came up, I think Commissioner French brought it up, was, well, we had one complaint when we talked about this earlier from folks on the west side looking at the connectivity to different roadways. So this gives you a sense of where we are in the county. Sands Road is on the west side of my artistic work on limited access over there with that circle. And the entire road is not paved. Sands Road is not paved. Madison Road is paved. So you can imagine that there's some potential for cut through. And I believe that if I hadn't seen the road and seen what kind of condition it is, most of the time we go in and we clean it up once a year. It's really accessible only to farm equipment and off-road vehicles. Any questions on this one, guys? Okay.
No, I would just confirm, Chad, that yeah, it's pretty much the road is not a road. so I think it's going to be a good thing for that to happen. And I do know the neighbors out there are all in favor of it. I haven't heard anyone against it, so.
Cool. Here's an easement that we're bringing forward for the board on our Darknell pit. So this is where the Darknell pit is. It's up near the Michael landfill. It actually has part of our drain line out of the Michael landfill, crosses the pit property right off of Highway 27. Next slide, please. The up close and personal look at it gives you, I guess, maybe a better look at actually the highlighted in red property is the one that wants the access permit. They have an access easement now, and they want to realign it. It doesn't fit with them very well, or for them very well. Next slide, please. And one more. So the blue is the easement as it was written up, and the red is where they would like it. This is a little different easement in that they are crossing that waste line from the landfill. So we had some special provisions in the easement. That's essentially the change from the blue to the red. Next slide, please.
We're out of slides.
That's it?
That's it.
Darn, I was on a roll.
No, that's why we eliminated a lot of them. No, just kidding.
Any questions, folks? That's all we have coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
Any questions, Mary or Josh? Okay.
Thank you very much.
As always, we're very excited. Thank you. Okay, so that completes all of the items that were prepared. Any miscellaneous items that one of you want to discuss? Mary?
So this morning we had Dan Barth from the Inland Northwest Behavioral Health talk. When he talked to me, it's one thing I haven't looked into, but I guess the Healthcare Authority had given out phones, a limited number, and through the DHSO. And so I'm trying to figure out what that is to see if that's a potential for us to use CARES dollars. There's a contractor that the state had gone through. So anyway, just that's what he was talking about this morning. I haven't investigated it. I'll look into it more and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Josh? So I had a conversation this afternoon with Stephanie Curran talking about the potential for using CARES dollars to provide some relief to the PFD, both from the standpoint of helping them market the facility when we come out of this pandemic, as well as recovering some of the costs that they've had to incur as it relates to PP&Es, sanitation, and some of the other things that they did not have budgeted and stuff. So she's going to put together a list of potential items that would, I think, pretty much qualify based upon how we've addressed other situations and stuff. So I should get that sometime, hopefully later on this week. I'll sit down with Carrie, make sure that everything is up to snuff for her before we bring it forward, but probably we'll bring something forward maybe next week or the week after next to try and do something to help the PFD with. To date, we have not done anything specifically for the PFD, even though they've had a dramatic impact in terms of the revenue. And I've shared with Stephanie that we can't do anything with regard to lost revenue, but we certainly can for unexpected expenditures and recovery. So and then Gina just handed me an email from Meg Winchester, and I'll just read it to you. It says, hope you're well. We are hoping to get on the schedule with the commissioners to present the marketing deliverables for Visit Spokane, as well as the inland deliverables from the CARES Act funding. Could you let us know when we could join the meeting? And so if it's all right with you, we'll schedule some time for either Monday or Tuesday to have them do a presentation so that at least we're up to speed prior to them going public with it. Is that all right with you? Okay, we'll make it happen. So that completes all the business coming before the board. So it is now.
Al, hey Al,
yeah.
can I ask, in your conversations with Stephanie when she was talking about marketing of the facility, any was there any talk or rumors about? I mean, I assume she's not looking into marketing the facility in phase 2 because of they're limited in what they can offer. So is she thinking phase 3, or is she thinking more phase 4? But I mean, if the funds have to be spent by the end of the year, I mean, I kind of doubt we're going to be in phase 4 at this. I mean, because correct me if I'm wrong, we're still halted. Like we can't even apply for the next. I don't think anybody can even apply to move still. Correct?
Yes, and stuff. So really, what she's talking about is to be able to book some of the activities for next year. They've got to be able to make deposits on those this year. So she's talking about money to be able to cover the deposits so that she can at least start booking the activities. But the activities wouldn't happen until mid to late next year. But if she doesn't put in the deposits now, she'll lose the business for next year. So it's that kind of an activity. So no, we're not trying to fill it up for this year and stuff. She's trying to figure out, how do I get business into the facility in 2021? And I think the earliest activity that she mentioned to me was the NCAA March, April Madness, whenever that's going to happen in the spring of next year. So that would be the earliest activity. So the other part of it is evidently the Sports Commission is having some challenges meeting some of their financial obligations. And so if they don't meet their deposits, then the pavilion will lose business, the new sports complex. So that's the other asset she's looking to try and say, hey, if I can pay a deposit now, I can reserve that activity for the end of next year. But if she doesn't pay it, then she loses the business for all of 2021.
Okay.
So we will scrub this with Carrie to make sure that it's passing muster with her before we bring it forward to the board. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that we were working to try and find a solution there that would get some help for the PFD. Okay.
And just since you bring them up, it does remind me, last week, Betsy from the MAC, Museum of Arts and Culture, reached out and kind of asked if they could submit an ask as well. So yeah, told them, yeah, I mean, you can always ask. I mean, kind of gave them the guidelines on what they could, kind of what the parameters are, so that we may be receiving an ask from the MAC as well, but don't know exactly what it is they're going to ask for. So, but may be coming.
And in the request for the PFD, in my conversation with Stephanie, she was saying, well, what kind of process or what kind, and I said, because we're the fiduciary for the PFD, we've got a financial interest in their success. So I said, just bring that straight to the board and we'll drill with that as a one-off between the board and the PFD, since any money they lose, we lose.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, so more to come on that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I got a quick one, Al.
All right.
Tom Conus just reached out. We have a certified value amount now for the new construction. 1.072. It's our billion. It's our third best of all time.
Okay.
Number one was 2008 when we had 1.082 billion. Last year was number two at 1.078. We only missed it by 6 million this year versus last year, but 1.072 billion new construction.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Governor Inslee.
And John, will you send us that information?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, if the home builders would have been able to get under construction in March instead of May, that would have made up the difference. So
Yeah.
thank you, Jay. Anyway, all righty. So it is now 3:14. We're adjourned. Thank you.